In the vast expanse of space, humanity had learned one crucial lesson: never underestimate the power of patience. For 300 years, humans had quietly built their strength in their small corner of the galaxy, all while watching the mighty NIGMA Empire expand its territories through brutal conquest. The NIGMA were tall, crystalline beings who believed themselves to be the epitome of evolution. Their bodies sparkled with internal light, and their technology was centuries ahead of most species they encountered. They had conquered 17 different civilizations, turning them into slave races that mined resources for their ever-growing empire. Captain James Miller stood at the bridge of the Earth Federation's flagship, Titan's Dawn, staring at the holographic display of the latest NIGMA conquest. The alien empire had just finished absorbing another peaceful species, the gentle cloud-dwelling mists of Beta Centauri. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his fingers drummed steadily on the command console. "Send the message again," he ordered, his voice steady but firm. Lieutenant Tom Wilson, a young officer with bright eyes and steady hands, nodded and transmitted humanity's seventh warning to the NIGMA Empire. The warning was simple: the Earth Federation formally requests that the NIGMA Empire cease its expansion and release its subjugated species. We have observed your actions for 3 centuries. This is your final notice. Further aggressive expansion will be met with consequences. The NIGMA's response came within minutes, as it always did. Their supreme commander, a being who called himself the Light-Bearer, appeared on the main screen. His crystalline form pulsed with mocking colors. "Tiny humans," the Light-Bearer's artificial voice translated, "your species occupies merely 12 systems. Our empire spans thousands. Your warnings are like the whispers of insects to giants. Continue your existence in your insignificant corner of space, and we shall graciously continue to ignore you." Captain Miller's expression remained unchanged as the transmission ended. He turned to his crew, all 30 members on the bridge waiting for his response. They had prepared for this moment for generations. "Send word to Earth Command," he said quietly. "The NIGMA have rejected our final warning. Initiate Protocol Pandora." Throughout human space, hidden shipyards that had been building in secret for centuries began to power up. Massive fleets emerged from the dark sides of moons and asteroid fields. Weapon systems that had been theorized, developed, and perfected over hundreds of years hummed to life. What the NIGMA Empire didn't know was that humanity had not been idle in their insignificant corner of space. They had been watching, learning, and most importantly, preparing. Every NIGMA conquest had been studied, their weaknesses catalogued, their battle tactics analyzed. The humans had discovered something crucial about the crystalline NIGMA: their bodies and technology resonated at specific frequencies. For 300 years, human scientists had worked to develop weapons that could exploit this weakness. They had created devices that could shatter NIGMA ships and soldiers with precisely calibrated sound waves. As Captain Miller gave the order to begin humanity's response, he remembered an old Earth saying, "Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall." The NIGMA Empire was about to learn why humanity's warnings should have been heeded. They were about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous predators are those that wait patiently in the shadows, watching and preparing for the perfect moment to strike. The NIGMA Empire's border outpost, Crystal Spear, was considered impregnable. Its massive crystalline structure housed 10,000 warriors and served as a staging ground for their conquests. The station commander, Bright Shard, had never lost a battle in his 300 years of service. That record was about to change. 3 human ships emerged from hyperspace, small vessels that the NIGMA would typically consider beneath their notice. Bright Shard didn't even bother to raise the station's shields. After all, what harm could 3 tiny ships do to a station that had withstood attacks from entire alien armadas? On the lead ship, Lieutenant Emma Roberts checked her instruments one final time. "Sound weapon calibrated to NIGMA resonance frequency, Captain. Ready to fire on your command." Captain Miller's voice came through clear on the comm system, "Remember your training. Fire. The three ships released what appeared to be a simple pulse of energy. To any observers, it would have looked disappointingly weak, no explosive force, no dramatic light show, just a gentle wave rippling through space. The effect on Crystal Spear, however, was catastrophic. The station's crystalline structure began to vibrate. At first, it was barely noticeable, just a slight shimmer in the station's usual gleam. Then hairline cracks appeared, spreading like spider webs across the surface. Inside, the NIGMA warriors felt their own bodies resonating with the same frequency. Bright Shard tried to send a distress signal, but his crystalline form was already starting to fracture. The sound waves had been perfectly tuned to the fundamental frequency of NIGMA physiology. Within minutes, the mighty Crystal Spear station shattered into billions of glittering fragments, its pieces spreading out into the void of space like a cloud of diamond dust. Back on Titan's Dawn, Miller watched the sensor readings with grim satisfaction. Send word to Earth command. First strike successful. 0 human casualties. Proceeding to Phase 2. Across NIGMA space, similar attacks began. Human ships, hidden in plain sight as merchant vessels or space debris, activated their sonic weapons. Strategic targets, military bases, shipyards, command centers, began to fall one by one. The Light-Bearer, supreme commander of the NIGMA, received the reports with increasing horror. How had they been so wrong about the humans? How had these primitives discovered their one fundamental weakness? Deploy the entire fleet, he ordered, his crystalline form flashing with angry pulses of red light. Crush these insects before they can strike again. But the NIGMA fleet faced a new problem. As their ships moved to engage the human vessels, they found their targeting systems failing. Human scientists had developed a method to bend light around their ships in ways that confused NIGMA sensors, making their vessels nearly impossible to lock onto. In the Titan's Dawn's command center, Tom Wilson monitored the enemy fleet movements. Sir, the NIGMA are responding exactly as predicted. Their entire defensive strategy relies on their advanced targeting systems. Captain Miller nodded. And without those systems, their superior numbers mean nothing. They're shooting blind while we can see perfectly. He paused, studying the tactical display. Launch Phase 2. Let's show them what else we've learned in the past 3 centuries. As Miller gave the order, thousands of tiny probes, long ago seeded throughout NIGMA space, began to activate. Each one emitted the same resonance frequency that had destroyed Crystal Spear, creating a web of destructive sound waves that would make entire sectors of space lethal to NIGMA ships and soldiers. The Empire that had ignored humanity's warnings was about to learn a harsh lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one that takes the time to study you before striking. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The unbeatable NIGMA Empire was falling. After centuries of oppression, their slave races watched in amazement as the mighty crystalline warships shattered into space dust, defeated by a species many had never even heard of. On the mining world of Helios Prime, the reptilian draconians had spent generations digging precious minerals for their NIGMA masters. Worker First Class Drake stood in the underground cavern, his scaled hands gripping a mining tool as he watched the facility's crystal guards suddenly explode into fragments. Human soldiers in dark combat suits emerged from the shadows, carrying devices that emitted the fatal resonance waves. "You're free now," a human soldier told the stunned draconians. "We've come to liberate all races enslaved by the NIGMA. Your people can return to their homeworld." The Light-Bearer raged in his crystal palace on the NIGMA homeworld. Half his empire had fallen in just 2 weeks. The humans had somehow mapped every weakness, every vulnerability in their supposedly perfect society. But he had one last card to play, the NIGMA's ultimate weapon. "Activate the World Breaker," he commanded. "If we cannot rule the galaxy, we will shatter it." The World Breaker was a massive crystal satellite that could amplify the NIGMA's natural energy-focusing abilities to destroy entire planets. It had been their insurance policy against rebellion, but they had never needed to use it before. Captain Miller and his crew received the intelligence about the World Breaker from their spies among the liberated races. "They're desperate," Miller told his bridge crew. "But we planned for this too." Lieutenant Emma Roberts stepped forward. "Sir, Operation Mirror is ready. The modified resonance probes have been positioned around their homeworld. The humans had discovered something else during their centuries of observation. The NIGMA's power to amplify energy could be turned against them. Their entire civilization was built on the principle of energy amplification through crystal structures. Begin Operation Mirror, Miller ordered. Let's show them what happens when you amplify a resonance wave. As the World Breaker powered up, humans activated thousands of resonance probes around the NIGMA homeworld. The crystal satellite began to amplify not just its own energy, but the resonance waves as well. The effect cascaded through every crystal structure on the planet. The light bearer realized too late what was happening. Stop the World Breaker. Shut it down. But the command came too late. The amplified resonance waves grew stronger and stronger, feeding back through the World Breaker and into the planet's crystal core. Tom Wilson watched the sensors from Titan's dawn. "Sir, the resonance cascade is reaching critical levels. The entire NIGMA homeworld is crystalline, down to its core. Once the resonance reaches that level." They watched as the NIGMA homeworld began to shimmer, then crack. The World Breaker shattered first, followed by the crystal cities. The Light-Bearer's palace crumbled, its proud spires falling like rain. Finally, the planet itself began to break apart, its crystal core vibrating at the fatal frequency. Throughout the galaxy, the remaining NIGMA forces felt their connection to their homeworld vanish. Their empire, built on pride and cruelty, had been undone by the very species they had dismissed as insignificant. Captain Miller stood at his viewing window, watching the liberation fleets moving to free the remaining slave worlds. "Send word to all NIGMA survivors," he ordered. "They have two choices: surrender and face trial for their crimes, or exile to the outer regions. Their empire is finished." The galaxy was changing. The species oppressed by the NIGMA were forming a new alliance with humanity as their protectors. The humans had proved that patience, preparation, and understanding could overcome even the mightiest empire. And somewhere in the dark between the stars, the shattered fragments of the NIGMA homeworld drifted like a warning to any future empire that might think of following in their footsteps. The destruction of the NIGMA homeworld sent shockwaves through the galaxy, but victory had come with a price. Fragments of the crystal planet, charged with unstable energy from the resonance cascade, were creating dangerous gravitational distortions throughout nearby systems. On the bridge of Titan's dawn, Captain Miller studied the reports from the cleanup fleet. "These crystal shards are more dangerous than we anticipated," he told his crew. "Each piece carries enough energy to tear a small moon apart." Lieutenant Emma Roberts pointed to a cluster of readings on her screen. "Sir, we're detecting something strange. The larger fragments, they're pulling themselves back together. The NIGMA weren't as defeated as humanity had thought. Their species had evolved from spaceborne crystal formations, and now their survival instinct was kicking in. The fragments of their homeworld were slowly combining, forming countless smaller colonies. Deep in space, aboard the remnants of a NIGMA battle cruiser, a group of survivors gathered around their new leader, Radiant Edge, once a low-ranking scientist who had studied human transmissions in secret. "Our arrogance was our downfall," Radiant Edge told his followers, his crystalline form glowing with a softer light than the typical NIGMA warrior. "We thought ourselves perfect, but the humans proved we had much to learn. Now we must adapt or face true extinction." Back on Earth, the Federation Council debated the fate of the surviving NIGMA. Admiral Peter Hayes, Miller's superior and longtime friend, addressed the assembly. "We didn't fight this war to commit genocide," Hayes argued, his gray hair and lined face showing the weight of command. "The NIGMA who wish to live peacefully should be given the chance. They've learned the cost of empire. The council chambers erupted in debate. Some wanted all NIGMA eliminated, seeing them as too dangerous to exist. Others argued for mercy, believing that showing compassion would prove humanity's moral superiority. Meanwhile, the liberated races were beginning to establish their own paths. The Draconians, led by Drake, now Governor Drake, had transformed their mining world into a thriving industrial center. They used their knowledge of crystal engineering, gained through centuries of forced labor, to develop new technologies that didn't rely on slavery or exploitation. Captain Miller received an unexpected transmission from Radiant Edge. The NIGMA scientists' message was different from their previous communications, humble, almost philosophical. "We understand now," Radiant Edge's translated voice came through clear but subdued. "Our belief in our own perfection blinded us to the true strength of diversity. The humans didn't just defeat us, they showed us a better way to exist in this galaxy." The message continued with an unusual proposal. The surviving NIGMA wished to establish a single colony, far from their former empire's borders. There, they would develop a new society, one based on cooperation rather than conquest. Lieutenant Tom Wilson analyzed the message. "Sir, their energy signatures are different from before. The crystals are vibrating at a harmonic frequency instead of the discordant patterns we saw during the war. They're literally changing their fundamental nature." Miller brought the proposal to Admiral Hayes and the Council. After much deliberation, they agreed to allow the NIGMA colony, but with conditions. Human resonance weapons would be positioned nearby as a safeguard, and the colony would be regularly monitored. As Miller watched the surviving NIGMA move to their new home, he reflected on how quickly the galaxy had changed. The mighty empire that had once threatened all free species was now a humble colony of survivors, learning to exist without domination. Sometimes, he told his crew, the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemy, but in helping them become something better than they were. The crystal fragments continued to dance in space, but now they moved with a different purpose, not to conquer or destroy, but to build something new from the ashes of empire. 6 months after the fall of the NIGMA Empire, strange signals began emanating from the outer edges of known space. Captain Miller and the crew of Titan's Dawn were dispatched to investigate, accompanied by an unlikely ally, Radiant Edge, the reformed NIGMA scientist. "The signals match no known pattern," Radiant Edge explained, his crystalline form pulsing with gentle blues and greens as he studied the data. "But they resonate at frequencies similar to ancient NIGMA songs." Lieutenant Emma Roberts raised an eyebrow. "Songs? Your people had music?" "We had much that was beautiful, once," Radiant Edge replied. "Before conquest became our only goal. These signals, they're calling to something deep within our racial memory." The investigation led them to an unexplored sector where space itself seemed to shimmer with crystalline particles. Here, they discovered something extraordinary, a vast field of naturally occurring space crystals, similar to the original formation from which the NIGMA had evolved millennia ago. "This is our true heritage," Radiant Edge whispered, his form resonating with the ancient crystal field. "Not empire, not conquest, but harmony with the cosmos itself." But they weren't alone in their discovery. A group of hardline NIGMA survivors, led by the warrior Sharp Vengeance, had also detected the signals. They saw the crystal field as a chance to rebuild their empire's power. "Prepare for combat," Miller ordered as enemy ships appeared on their sensors. "But remember, minimal resonance weapons. We can't risk destroying this site." The battle that followed was unlike any in the recent war. The natural crystal field affected both human technology and NIGMA biology in unexpected ways. Energy weapons reflected off crystal surfaces, communications became distorted, and the NIGMA themselves found their bodies responding to the field's natural frequencies. Tom Wilson monitored the strange readings from his station. "Sir, the crystal field, it's not just reflecting our weapons. It's changing them." The energy is being transformed into music. The space around them filled with harmonic waves as weapon fire struck the crystals. The effect was immediate and unexpected. The hardline NIGMA ships began to lose cohesion, their crystalline hulls resonating with the ancient frequencies. Sharp Vengeance's voice crackled over the comm system. What sorcery is this? Our ships, our bodies, we cannot maintain form. Radiant Edge stepped forward, his own form glowing brighter. It's not sorcery. It's remembrance. The field is reminding us of what we once were, beings of harmony, not destruction. The human crew watched in amazement as the natural crystal field began to affect all NIGMA present. Both Radiant Edge's allies and Sharp Vengeance's forces found themselves transforming, their rigid crystalline structures becoming more fluid, more attuned to the cosmic harmonies around them. This is why we evolved as we did, Radiant Edge explained, his own form now flowing like liquid crystal. Not to dominate, but to resonate with the universe itself. Our ancestors chose to become rigid, unchanging, believing it made us superior. But our true strength lies in our ability to change, to harmonize. Captain Miller observed as the former NIGMA warriors, including Sharp Vengeance, began to surrender to the transformation. Their warship settled into the crystal field, becoming part of the natural formation. Send word to Earth Command, Miller ordered. We found more than just the NIGMA's origins. We found their future. The discovery changed everything. The surviving NIGMA were given the choice to return to their original evolutionary path, becoming part of the living crystal field, or to maintain their current form and live in peace with other species. Many chose to return to their cosmic origins, creating a new civilization that focused on understanding the harmonies of space rather than controlling them. As Titan's Dawn prepared to return home, Miller stood with Radiant Edge at the observation deck. Your people chose a different path once, Miller said. Will you choose to return to this form? Radiant Edge's crystal body shimmered thoughtfully. Perhaps. But first, I want to help build bridges between our peoples. After all, it was humanity that helped us remember who we truly were. 1 year after the discovery of the crystal fields, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The former slave worlds of the NIGMA Empire had formed a coalition of free worlds, with humanity serving not as rulers, but as guardians and advisors. Captain Miller stood before the Coalition Council on their new capital world, Haven, originally a NIGMA mining colony now transformed into a beacon of cooperation. Representatives from 17 formerly enslaved species sat alongside human delegates and even a few transformed NIGMA. The crystal fields are expanding, Miller reported, showing holographic maps of space. But not as a threat. They're creating new hyperspace lanes, faster and safer than anything we've used before. Governor Drake of the Draconian stepped forward, his scaled form gleaming under the chamber lights. My people have studied these crystal lanes. They resonate at frequencies that allow ships to travel 10 times faster than our best engines. The NIGMA's gift to the galaxy is finally one of creation rather than destruction. But not all news was positive. Lieutenant Emma Roberts brought concerning reports from the outer regions. We're detecting unusual energy signatures from unexplored space. Something, or someone, is watching us. The Coalition Council erupted in worried murmurs. Had their activities attracted attention from beyond known space? Radiant Edge, now serving as an advisor to both humans and the Coalition, raised his crystalline form to address the Council. Throughout our history as conquerors, we NIGMA ignored many warnings about forces lurking in the dark between galaxies, he revealed. In our pride, we believed nothing could threaten us. Perhaps now we face judgment from powers greater than ourselves. Admiral Hayes, his uniform now bearing the new insignia of the Coalition Defense Force, called for calm. Whatever's out there, we face it together. Humanity learned from the NIGMA conflict that preparation and unity are our greatest weapons. Deep in Coalition space, a new project was underway. The Harmony Initiative, led by Lieutenant Tom Wilson, worked to combine human ingenuity with NIGMA crystal technology and the diverse knowledge of all coalition species. "We're not just building defenses," Wilson explained to Miller during a tour of the facility. "We're creating a new way of life. The crystal lanes are just the beginning. Imagine cities that can heal themselves, ships that can adapt to any environment, communication systems that span galaxies." In the crystal fields, those NIGMA who had chosen to return to their cosmic origins were making remarkable discoveries. They learned to communicate across vast distances through crystalline harmonies, creating a network of information and energy that spanned sectors instantly. One of these transformed NIGMA, a being now calling itself Cosmic Song, made contact with Titan's Dawn during a routine patrol. Their message was both wondrous and troubling. "We sense them clearly now," Cosmic Song's harmonics translated in Miller's command center. "The Watchers from between galaxies. They test all rising civilizations, judging their worth. The NIGMA Empire failed their test through conquest and cruelty. Now they watch to see if our transformed civilization will do better." Miller looked out at the glittering expanse of the crystal fields, thinking about how far they'd all come. The humans had won their war not through pure military might, but through patience, understanding, and the wisdom to offer redemption to their former enemies. "Let them watch," he told his crew. "Let them see how the galaxy grows stronger when we work together. The NIGMA Empire may have faced extinction, but from its end, we've built something greater than any single species could achieve alone." Radiant Edge, standing beside him, resonated in agreement. Perhaps that was the true test all along. Not to see who could conquer the galaxy, but to see who could unite it. As if in response, the crystal fields pulsed with new light, their harmonies spreading further into space, a beacon to whatever watched from the darkness between the stars. 5 years after the fall of the NIGMA Empire, Captain Miller stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Coalition flagship, Unity's Light. The massive vessel represented everything the galaxy had achieved: human engineering, draconian mining expertise, transformed NIGMA crystal technology, and contributions from every member of the Coalition. The reason for Unity's Light's maiden voyage was unprecedented. The Watchers from between galaxies had finally made direct contact. "Message incoming," Lieutenant Emma Roberts announced from her new position as First Officer. "The signal matches the patterns we detected in the crystal fields." The main screen illuminated with a sight that left the bridge crew speechless. The Watchers were beings of pure energy, their forms shifting between states of matter in complex patterns. Their message was transmitted through crystalline harmonics, which Radiant Edge helped translate. "Children of the young worlds," the message began, "you have passed the great test. For millennia, we have watched civilizations rise. Most follow the path of the NIGMA Empire: conquest, domination, eventual self-destruction. You chose differently." Admiral Hayes, attending this historic moment via hologram from Coalition headquarters, stepped forward. "We simply learned from history's mistakes. The NIGMA taught us what not to become." The Watchers' response resonated through the crystal components of Unity's Light. The NIGMA were not the test. They were merely the tool. Humanity's response to them, patience, preparation, and mercy even in victory, showed us your true nature. And now, your Coalition shows us your potential. Tom Wilson, now head of the Harmony Initiative, studied the readings from the Watchers' transmission. Their energy signatures, they're similar to the crystal fields, but vastly more complex. Everything we've learned about crystal harmonics was just the beginning. The Watchers confirmed Wilson's observation. "We seeded the crystal fields throughout this galaxy billions of years ago, waiting for species that could understand their true purpose. The NIGMA found them first but understood only their potential for power. You have begun to grasp their true purpose: connection, harmony, growth." Governor Drake, representing the Coalition Council aboard Unity's Light, asked the question on everyone's mind: why reveal yourselves now? The Watcher's forms pulsed with new patterns. Because your galaxy faces a choice. The crystal networks you've discovered can be expanded. We offer you the knowledge to join the intergalactic harmonic, a network of civilizations spanning millions of galaxies, all united through crystal resonance technology. Captain Miller thought about humanity's journey. From a species that the NIGMA had dismissed as insignificant, they had become key players in a galactic coalition. And now, they stood at the threshold of something even greater. There's a catch, isn't there? Miller asked. There's always a catch. Wisdom, the Watchers acknowledged. Yes. Joining the harmonic requires complete commitment to peace and cooperation. War between member civilizations is impossible. The crystal networks that connect us would make conflict mutually destructive. You would gain knowledge beyond imagination, but must forever set aside the possibility of conquest. Miller looked at his crew, humans working alongside former enemies and former slaves, all united in purpose. He looked at Radiant Edge, once a member of an empire built on domination, now a teacher of harmony. The choice was clear. We faced extinction, Radiant Edge spoke up, and found rebirth through cooperation. The coalition already walks the path you offer. The decision to join the intergalactic harmonic was unanimously approved by the Coalition Council. As Unity's light established the first links to the greater crystal network, Captain Miller reflected on the long journey that had brought them here. The NIGMA Empire ignored humanity's warning and faced extinction, he told his crew. But from that extinction came transformation, not just for them, but for all of us. We learned that true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to create, to connect, to grow. As the crystal networks activated, new knowledge and connections flooded in from across the universe. The age of isolation was over. The galaxy that had nearly been shattered by the NIGMA Empire's pride was now becoming part of something far greater, a symphony of civilizations, resonating together in the endless dance of space and time.